In this video, I want to cover how we're going to use Blackboard, and specifically where you can find things within Blackboard, because I know everyone uses Blackboard a little bit differently. So to start with, I'm in the class website for Blackboard, so the Spring 2021 Cloud for Developers online section. And initially, we're looking at the announcements. So the way I'll handle announcements is if I need to broadcast an important message. I rarely use this other than kind of an introduction. In the past, I've used it for inclement weather where the campus may or may not be closed, and I want to make an announcement about kind of a face-to-face meeting where students are driving. I don't expect that to happen in the spring 2021 semester, so again, I'll use announcements fairly infrequently. And when I do use announcements, they'll typically be broadcast via email as well. So as long as you're monitoring your email, you'll get the class announcements. Okay, so that's where those will reside. My contact info is here. So my email, my phone number, my office location is virtual for the spring 2021 semester, and office hours are by appointment. I do want to make a note about office hours and just kind of meeting in general. You'll see in week one, there's a week one check-in. It's kind of a short quiz that you're going to end up doing. And in that week one check-in, one of the questions is, how are things going? Do you want to meet with me? Do you have questions? What's your availability? That works, and that's certainly something that I'm going to review. But it may or may not be timely depending on how urgent your need is to meet. So what ends up happening is I kind of check those check-ins near the due date, and the due date is not until next Wednesday, the 27th of January. So if you need to meet with me today or tomorrow, it's something urgent. The best way to do that, the best way to schedule that is to just message me in Slack. Okay, to say, hey, Brian, I'm really confused about X, Y, and Z. We need to meet now. Is there a way we could set up something? So that's the quickest and easiest way to schedule an appointment. So that's my contact info. I want to spend some time on the syllabus just so everyone's on the same page. So the class is named Cloud for Developers, and this specific class, and realistically the cloud classes within the front-end developer degree, are focused on AWS. Okay, that's not to say that those are the only cloud services. We could certainly be kind of managing the same types of concepts in Azure or in Google, but for this class we're going to use AWS to kind of go through those basic core services that would be in a cloud environment. Okay, so we're using AWS. With that, you're going to have to sign up for an AWS account. And when you sign up for an AWS account, you are required to supply a credit card for that account. Okay, so we've looked at workarounds, and I basically came to the determination that there's not a satisfactory workaround to using credit cards. What I would say, as long as we manage resources throughout the semester, so I use the services that I want to use, and then when I'm done using them, I shut them down, shut them off. As long as we are actively managing the services that we're using within AWS, I don't anticipate your AWS bill being more than $5 for the semester. Some of you will be a little bit cheaper than that, some of you will be a little bit more than that, but $5 is kind of the cost that we're looking at. Some of you will be cheaper than that because you are on the free trial. So if you have not signed up for an AWS account before, you have 12 months to try some services, and they give you kind of a free tier pricing plan. It's kind of like a trial plan for the first 12 months. Whereas if you've already signed up for AWS and you're past that 12-month free trial plan, then they start charging you for some of the services. And specifically, the service that I'm thinking of is EC2 is probably the most expensive service that we'll use. And I think it's 30 cents a day. And for a day, you might only be using it a couple of hours. So if we activate the instance when we start up EC2 and then shut it down when we're done using it, will be even less than 30 cents a day. So that's where that pricing comes in. Okay, there's other things that you end up having to pay for as well, like S3, but very inexpensive. Okay, so we'll need AWS. The textbook for the class and the materials for the class, and I mentioned this in my online live section, good luck finding a textbook for this. There just isn't one. So what we'll do is I'll use internet resources that are relevant to the weekly topics that we're covering. So there might be a tutorial online or a YouTube video from AWS or maybe AWS documentation, but those will be referenced in kind of the weekly outline materials. So over here on the left, you have the week 1 through 5. Those will be referenced there. Okay. Text and materials that you need. So there is not a specific textbook for the class. You will need a credit card for your AWS account when you sign up. There's no specific software that's going to be required for the class. I will say that a good text editor is going to be required, and that could be either Atom or Visual Studio Code. Both are probably good choices. There's other good choices, but those are kind of the two main front-end developer text editors that we're using. Attendance. This is an online class. Maybe I should take out the attendance here, but really what attendance is it's your responsibility to let me know if you're going to miss the due date on an assignment. Okay, that is on you. So not necessarily attendance, but you are in charge of the schedule for this course, meaning there's due dates. So there's an exam date, there's project 1 due date, there's a lab 1 due date. You are responsible for meeting those deadlines. And if you're not going to meet those deadlines, you have to proactively let me know. Okay. An ADA statement. So if you need special accommodations for this course, please let me know. You should have a disability plan that is set up through student services, and if you want to send that to me, by all means, please do. Okay. This class is set up, it's a safe space for everyone. I won't tolerate harassment or discrimination in this class. I haven't had too many issues with it, so let's keep it that way. That's always the goal. The college catalog and student handbook. There is a college catalog and student handbook and academic conduct where we talk about student responsibilities and academic integrity. And what I'll say about that is different instructors have different rules regarding, can you work together? How is your coursework accomplished? I'll kind of walk you through my policy so that we're all on the same page. I encourage you to work together. Okay, Slack is an awesome collaboration tool. So if you are stuck on project 1 and you need help, and maybe it's 2 in the morning and you post a message in Slack, I encourage another student, if they're on Slack as well and they know the answer to it, to answer the question. Okay, that's not cheating, that's getting help. And I'll go even further. A big part of the IT career is knowing how to ask for help. Okay, so I want to describe the problem accurately. I want to describe the things that I've already tried that haven't worked. And I want to describe the expected outcome. I want to give that kind of detail so that when someone answers my question, they're giving me an accurate response. Okay, and that's a huge part of IT, is knowing how to ask that question and describe the problem and describe the conditions and describe, the steps that you've already taken so that you're not wasting someone else's time. Okay, so that to me is not cheating. And that could be a project, that could be a lab, all of those things. What is cheating is, I know that the project due date is, let's pick February 1st as an example. And on February 1st, I'm not done. So I ask another student in the class, hey, I didn't do any of the project. Can I copy yours? That's not working collaboratively, that's just copying. Okay? So, like, that's the distinction. I will caution you, and I've seen this over the years as an instructor, that I do want to have some level of perseverance for myself. I don't want to immediately say, I don't know how to do that, I'm going to go post a message on Slack or Stack Overflow. It's kind of a fine line of where you decide to ask for help. So there's times where you want to work through the problem yourself. You want to try a few things. You don't know the answer immediately, but you have a few things or a few ideas that you might want to try. And once you've exhausted those ideas, you have no more ideas, then maybe that's time to ask for help. As opposed to, I don't have any idea how to do this. I don't have any thoughts on how to progress through this. I'm just going to ask for help. Part of being in IT is having some thoughts about how you would solve the problem. And they may or may not work. So building that hypothesis of how I might solve the problem is part of IT. It's a huge part of IT. Okay, so it's a fine line, and I have students on both ends of the spectrum where I have students that will spend 10 hours just trying to hammer through a problem and not wanting to ask for help because they think they can just power through it. And then students that after the first 30 seconds of pain where they struggle to get something, they ask for help. So I have opposite ends of the spectrum where some students refuse to ask for help and other students that ask for help immediately. And it's kind of a balancing act. And as you get better and better within the IT career field, you know when the appropriate time is to call in for help. Okay, so that's why the student handbook and academic conduct are in here. There's college resources. So I say this every semester, and I want to make sure that I say it to you. This is kind of a crazy time of life. So there's tons of support services at Madison College. If you're going through some personal issues or anything like that, be sure to reach out and get help. I'm home with 3 teenage kids that are home from school that are pretty isolated at this point during the pandemic, and I can tell you, like, there's some strange issues that come up. So if you need support, by all means, find support, whether it's from me or if you reach out to some other college service. Please make sure that you're taking care of yourself. Okay. And that's both personally and professionally and physically. Take care of yourself. Okay. I'm pretty flexible about assignment due dates and things like that, especially with kind of what we're going through. So please be open and communicative about any issues that you're running into, and maybe you contract COVID, or a family member does, or someone in your house does, or your situation is a little messed up because of what we're going through in COVID. Be proactive and reach out to me and say, look, this project one, I know you have it due February 1st, but I'm going through X, Y, and Z. Can I have a 1-week extension? Okay, proactively ask that, as opposed to, it's February 8th, I'm a week behind, I haven't let Brian know anything, I haven't done the check-ins, and now I'm going to follow up a week after the fact. Okay, so be proactive about reaching out, and I'm very flexible. Okay, as far as how the class is scored, okay, so you're going to receive a grade for the class at the end of the semester. The way your grade is going to be determined is based on the formula that's right here in the assignment section. And I'll be open and upfront. I taught this class last semester, and I think we only got through 10 labs, not 12 labs. So the plan for the semester is we're going to have 12 labs worth 5 points apiece. Each lab it's kind of like a weekly lab. It's kind of a check-in based on the material that we covered for that week. So, for instance, this week you're going to have a lab where you create an AWS account. You create the AWS account, you log in, you screenshot it, and submit that screenshot through Slack, and you get 5 points for it. If we get into a lab that's later in the semester and there's a couple of steps and maybe you did a step or two wrong, I might send you feedback like, hey, you did steps 2, 3, and 4 wrong, but the rest of it looked right. I'd send it back to you so that you could redo it and get the full 5 points. And the way the labs are graded is either you get full credit because you did the lab, you get 5 points, or you didn't do the lab and you get 0 points. Okay. As long as you turn something in, though, I likely will follow up with you even if it's incorrect so that you can get the full 5 points for the labs. In addition to the labs, there's weekly check-ins. They're worth 3 points each, so 12 total check-ins for 36 points. Okay, so those check-ins are kind of quick and easy, and we'll see one when we look at week 1. But what the check-ins are basically like, what are you working on? How are things going? Are you running into any issues? And do we need to meet? Okay, and I'll be honest with you, you can be really blunt and say, everything's going good, I'm not working on anything, or I'm working on lab 4. So you can be really kind of quick and short with me on the check-ins. But what I would suggest is that you want to get those 36 points for those check-ins. They're easy points. All you got to do is say, all's good. Okay, it's just a check-in to make sure that you're still here, you're still kind of progressing through the course, you're not lost completely. That's what those check-ins are really there for. Okay, so in addition to the labs and check-ins, there's going to be 4 larger projects that are kind of evenly spaced throughout the semester. The projects, the idea there is that each week we might cover a specific service within AWS. The projects will be more detailed in that we might kind of combine multiple services within AWS to create a project. So for instance, I can't really do much in IAM other than create users and groups and give permissions, but in terms of a project, I might decide that I want to create a group that has access to an S3 bucket, and they have specific access to one bucket, and they have a different type of access to a different bucket in S3. Okay, so that's where we'll start to overlap services and kind of combine to create larger projects. Okay, and then in addition to those projects, there'll be 2 exams, a midterm and a final. So approximately 276 points in the class, and I say approximately because, like I said, last semester we didn't get through 12 labs. I think we got through 10. Okay, and then there's a rough course outline that's going to basically follow our weekly schedule in Blackboard. Okay, so that's the syllabus. The course details section contains all of the assignment due dates for the semester. Okay, so you'll notice that we're in week 1. The first assignment is going to be due, the first lab is going to be due on the 27th, which is next Wednesday. And it's due before 11:59. So Wednesday by 11:59 p.m. before midnight, you're going to have that due. You'll also have your first check-in due. So on 127, you have 8 possible points, 5 points for the lab and 3 points for the check-in. Okay, so the assignment calendar is under course details. Week 1. So I'm just going to go into week 1. What I'll suggest is that I will work ahead, but for the time being, these weekly folders are not complete. And the reason they're not complete is I was going through and kind of copying stuff over from an old Blackboard course, and a lot of the material is out of date or AWS is changing. So I don't want to reference old articles and old material, so I'm kind of updating them as we go. So week 1 is up to date. You'll have the read, you're going to read the syllabus, you're going to read the course details and get the semester assignment calendar so that you know where that is. Watch has 4 different videos that I'm going to have you watch. And then do is you're going to access the Blackboard site. You're going to join the Slack workspace, and many of you have already done those 2 things. And then you're going to sign up for an AWS account. So this is Lab 1. So if I go into Do, you're going to see these last two items, sign up for an AWS account and complete the check-in. So I'm going to go into the Do folder. The first one is basically a hyperlink to a web page that walks you through the account creation process. And then the second one is that check-in that I had already mentioned. It looks like a test. And the idea here is, are you encountering any issues? What project work have you completed? And then do you need further assistance? If so, what availability do you have to meet? Okay. And like I said, question 3, if it's an urgent need, by all means, feel free to reach out through Slack. Okay, so that's kind of the quickest and easiest way to get a hold of me. This also works if it's kind of a non-urgent question, but if it's an urgent question, I don't want you to think that I'm not seeing these. The fact of the matter is I'm just probably not looking at them until I batch them all up and look at them after the due date. Okay, so let's go. What's going on with the check-ins? Okay, so that's kind of how each week is going to flow. So if we're in week 1, week 1 has what we should read, what do we need to watch, and then what do we actually need to do. And that weekly schedule will be there for each week. Okay. And that's kind of how we're going to progress through our timeline of the semester. So by the end of the semester, we'll have 16 weeks there. Okay, so this is really what we're going to use Blackboard for. One last thing that I'll point out is as you're completing labs, as you're completing check-ins, as you're completing projects, make sure that your grades are reflecting that. So in Blackboard, just every once in a while, you're going to want to check your grade to say, hey, you know, I turned in Lab 3 and I don't have a grade for Lab 3. Make sure you're checking your grades and following up with me if that's the case. Okay, so that's kind of the framework that we'll use for using Blackboard for this course, is we have my contact info, the syllabus, the course details, and then we're going to use these weekly schedules to kind of keep on task with the semester.